Thank you so much for coming. I'm Molly. I'm with the Burials Foundation. Thanks for braving the cold. I can't believe it was 28 degrees this morning. And then I started thinking last night that it's November 1st, all of a sudden. I guess for everyone who has grandkids and kids, y'all were all trick-or-treating last night. So y'all all knew that. Well, it is November 1st, which means it's National Alzheimer's Awareness Month. So it's a perfect day to start this conference. And every 65 seconds, someone develops Alzheimer's in the United States. And that means an entire family is affected, an entire community is affected, oftentimes a workplace is affected. And that's why we're all here. That's why we do what we do at the foundation. That's why all of these vendors are out there. That's why all these sponsors are here. That's why the church opens their doors to embrace the families that are struggling through it. A little bit about our story, and I know my mom's going to touch on that later. When my grandmother was diagnosed in 2001, we had no idea what we were doing. And we walked through that caregiving journey, and you kind of learn by trial and error. Well, fast forward to my grandpa, it was such a different experience when he was diagnosed because we were educated, because we had walked through it, because we knew the resources in the community, because we could recognize the signs, because we understood, how to take care of ourselves, as well as taking care of him and how to ask for help. All of the things that, we didn't know the first time. So it really increased our passion to have conferences, to reach out to caregivers, to create resources, to build partnerships in the community, because it was such a different experience when we were educated. So I'm so glad that everyone is here. I'm so thankful to our sponsors, Senior Strategies, Todd Whatley, he's your first speaker. Thank you so much for being the presenting sponsor, for allowing this event to happen, for allowing us to continue to provide resources at no cost. Home Instead Senior Care, they're another large sponsor. They were recently awarded, I want to make sure I get this right, the Governor's Quality Award, so congratulations to them. Socket to Alzheimer's, what an inspiring story they are. These are some of our sponsors. I just wanted to mention them because, again, we wouldn't be here without them. And we are so fortunate to live in a community with so many resources for us and so many people who do care. And so I really do encourage you to take time to speak to all of them today. The Schmeeding Center, a wealth of knowledge there for everybody. Make sure you talk to them. So thank you guys. Springwoods, Behavioral Health First Security, Avenir Memory Care. They're also a recipient of the Governor's Quality Award. Bright Star Care, Grand Brook Memory Care, Village on the Park, Elite Hospice, the Elrod Firm, Magnolia Place, Superior Senior Care, the Good Shepherd, Ashley Rehab and Healthcare. There's an amazing group of people, and of course all of the vendors. So I want to make sure and thank all of them. So if we could maybe give them a hand and just say thank you. Yes. Okay, as well as our sponsors, the volunteers that put this together, I want to thank them. I don't know if everyone's in here. Melissa Shelley and Rochelle, Cherie Clark, Jane Nemitz, our interns Tara, Quentin, and Hannah. And she didn't get to participate as much this year, but this event would not be what it was without Linda V. Hill. So I want to make sure and say thank you to her. And we missed having you this year. So thank you guys for all of the hours and work and effort that you put into it. We're all really appreciative. Okay, so a little bit of housekeeping things before we get started. In your purple bag, you should all have a brochure schedule of what we're going to be doing. So we're going to have a talk and then a 15-minute break and then another talk and then lunch and then talk. And so we're going to go back and forth. So make sure during that break you get some food or drink, use the restroom, and then we'll be back in here so we can have good focused time. So Todd Whatley with Senior Strategies, a little bit about him. They've recently moved, if you knew where he was before. Now they are next to the DMV in Bentonville. Todd has been doing this for over 20 years. I encourage you to read a little bit about his bio. It's very, very interesting. But he's on the radio on Wednesdays from 9 to 10 a.m. on KERM, which is 100.3 FM. And he is a wealth of knowledge. He's going to do a question and answer at the end. So if you do have questions, write them down so that you can ask him. Also on his radio show, you can call in and ask, and that is such a valuable resource. So without further ado, Todd Whatley.
Cool. Thank you very much, Molly. That was great. Sarah, wave at everybody. Sarah's my radio co-host. She's the As I say, she's the perky one of the show. Sometimes I show up and I'm not in the best mood at 8 o'clock in the morning. Whoa, do I need to move? Okay, so yeah, Sarah does the show with me. I encourage you to listen. It's fun. All right, so today's topic is Medicaid Misconceptions, and I've been doing this for 20 years, and Medicaid is something I love to do, but I get frustrated at the incorrect assumptions that are out there. So this is a brand new presentation for me. I really have no idea how long this is going to go. Betsy did say I could go till noon, so we're going to be kidding, but I really don't know how long this is going to last, but we'll make it work, okay? So you should have gotten a voting device. This is the first time I've done this. There may be some kinks, so just work with me, but I think this will help you see how these are misconceptions, how people don't understand how this works, and so I think this will be fun. Our first vote is going to be, this presentation is going to be really boring, and I'm wondering why I came. Yes, lawyers are typically boring. Number two, it'll be okay, or C, it's going to be amazing. So go ahead and vote. Yes. And I'll give you just a few seconds. I promise you will not hurt my feelings. I expect there to be a whole bunch of A's and B's, okay? We are at 44. How many? Oh, who did not get a clicker that wants one? Are there any more? Two. Okay, bring one up here. And one right behind her. Yeah, right up here, second row. Jim. And then the lady right behind her, I think, wanted. Okay. Close the voting, and let's see what... Nope, the square. There we go. Well, thank you. Okay, 74. So, all right, well... I'm going to ask this question at the end, and so now the pressure's really on. It's like, this was really not worth my time. So, okay, thank you very much. Okay, so let's talk about, close that out for me. There, it's moving. Okay, there we go. Okay, so Medicaid, okay? What people don't understand is in nursing homes, 80% of everyone in a nursing home is on Medicaid. Okay, it is the system that pays for long-term care. Okay, it's there. And people are concerned when people come into the office, we start talking, and I get to Medicaid, they're like, wait, no. I don't want to go into a Medicaid nursing home. Well, that's interesting because every nursing home in Northwest Arkansas that you can go into right now takes Medicaid. Okay, it just doesn't matter. They all take it because in Arkansas, it's hard to fill beds if the person doesn't go on Medicaid. Most nursing homes are $5,000 to $7,000 per month. So a lot of people can't afford to pay that for very long, and therefore they do end up on Medicaid. Medicaid is not Medicare, okay? Everybody confuses it. And so if you think Medicare is going to pay for your nursing home care, it's not. It can pay for a little bit after a hospital stay, but it is not going to pay long term, all right? It will pay for PT, OT, speech, social work, nursing, but after you're done there, it's either you pay privately or you go home, okay? So it's not Medicare. Medicare doesn't pay it. The rules that I talk about today are Arkansas rules. We're in Arkansas. I'm assuming that you're going to deal with Arkansas. Medicaid is federal law, but each state gets to do it just a little bit differently, okay? So Medicaid in Arkansas is going to be different than Medicaid in Texas or Oklahoma or Missouri and for sure California, okay? California is crazy. Everybody gets on Medicaid there. The rules just... There's been about 3 sets of federal rules that have come down over the last 40 years. California has not incorporated any of those. So it's crazy. All right? So it is therefore different in every state. It is very complicated. As we go through this, you'll see there's some things that are like, wait, I thought this, but it's not that. when a person is applying for Medicaid, they will look at all of your assets, okay? They will look at everything. But there are certain assets that Medicaid says, okay, these you can have, and we're not going to count these against you. Your home, okay? The home, many times your biggest asset, they don't count it typically, okay? Number two, anything that's in your home, the garage, the attic, don't care, don't tell us, you can have that. One vehicle. If you own more than one vehicle, it is the vehicle with the most equity or that is most expensive. Okay, so you can pick and choose which vehicle is going to be not counted. Number two, or next, prepaid burials. Okay, anytime that you pay for your burial at the nursing home, write the check, you're done. Whatever that is, be it $7,000, $8,000, $10,000, $12,000, that is also not counted. Thankfully, Medicaid does want you to get buried. Okay, now, the issue is it has to be an irrevocable policy so that your family can't say, yeah, we changed our mind, we get the money back, and you're left unburied. Okay, so it does have to be an irrevocable policy. Any asset that you yourself cannot get to, if you can't convert it to cash by yourself, Medicaid says, that's fine. We're not going to make someone else do this for you. If you yourself, as the applicant, cannot convert it to cash, they don't count it, okay? Finally, you cannot have more than $2,000 in any other assets, okay? That's a harsh number, but that is the number. Okay, how do you get to less than $2,000? If you've got to be under two, then one of the most common ways is, what if I just give everything away? Surprisingly, in Arkansas, you can do that, okay? You can give away assets to get under $2,000. Now, here's the deal though. Medicaid has a 5-year look back. 60 months from the date of application, they will look back to see what have you done with your assets during those 5 years, okay? That's what it is. It's a 60-month look back. You have to tell them, and they are pretty good at figuring it out if you don't tell them, okay? Okay, our first real question here. Making a gift means that I am disqualified from Medicaid for the next 5 years. So the answer is false, okay? And here's why. Medicaid simply imposes a penalty for making gifts. So many clients have come in to say, we are not applying for Medicaid because grandma made a gift of $10,000 3 years ago. Oh my goodness, no, it's a 5-year look back, meaning that you have to tell Medicaid that's what you've done. Once they find the gift or you tell them about it, they will penalize you or not pay for the nursing home for the length of time that the money would have paid for the nursing home. Okay, example. If you give away $58,000, okay, this year the average statewide average of nursing home cost is $5,749, $5,749 per month. So if you give away $58,000, that means that would have paid for 10 months worth of care, so therefore Medicaid will not pay for those 10 months. It's that simple. It's just math. All right, so it's just simple math. 58,000 divided by 5749 is 10 point whatever. So basically 10 months. Now, here's the thing. When does the penalty start? Under the old rules, which is before 2006, when things were kind of fun in Medicaid, the penalty started when the gift was made. Well, now they've gotten fancy on us, and 3 things have to be in place for the penalty to start. Number 1, you have to be in a nursing home, and there's some provisions that you can be in assisted living, but generally in a facility. Number 2, otherwise qualified, meaning you have to be broke to start this penalty. And number 3, you have to apply. So here's the situation that occurs. Mom, grandmother, whoever, has $100,000. Granddaughter's graduating high school, going to college. She says, granddaughter, I love you. You're my favorite. Here's $50,000 for college. Oh, thanks, Grandma. And so she goes to college. 2 years later, Grandma has a stroke and goes into the hospital. She goes into the nursing home. They say she can't go home. So therefore, she goes into a nursing home, and her remaining $50,000 gets spent. So now she's in a nursing home, otherwise qualified because she's broke, and now she applies for Medicaid. That's when the penalty starts. So what happens? I don't know. There is no good answer for that in that she may have to come home unless the family can pay through those 10 months. So it's a problem, okay? When people don't know what to do, they don't plan ahead to say, yeah, we made a gift, it's a problem. All right. So we're not going to get to do questions, are we? Doggone it. This was my favorite one. Okay, so Miss Jones gives her granddaughter $58,000. The soonest she can get through the penalty is 60 months, 10 months, 5 months, or never. Just real quick, let's do a show of hands. It's not working, okay? So who thinks 10 months? It's obviously not 60 months, okay? All right, the real answer is 5 months, okay? Because you think Arkansas Medicaid makes sense, okay? You just said $58,000 gift would create a 10-month penalty. Yes, I did. But with some planning, with a strategy that you can implement, here is how it works. When we plan ahead, we can protect half of the assets. So had she come to see us with $100,000, we could have protected the $50,000, but in that situation where she gave the gift away during the 5-year look back, now she's in the nursing home. If you'll come to us quickly with some money, I can use her current money to pay for the penalty. Here's how that works. You simply give away half of the money, not the entire gift, only give away half. In this situation with $58,000, you would give away $29,000. That's a 5-month penalty. Okay, 58 is 10, 29 is 5. We take the other portion of that, the other $29,000, and we convert it into income with a very specific type of annuity that Medicaid allows us to do that converts assets into income. So we use her money to pay for the penalty created by the gift. All right? The family keeps half, or in this situation where the granddaughter's not paying back $50,000, she's in college, it's gone, we use her money to cover the penalty rather than mom coming home or the family shelling out the money for the penalty. Okay? My favorite client is the married couple, okay? Because typically she comes in, it's typically she has just put her husband into a nursing home. She comes in, she's scared to death because typically at where? Church and beauty shops, she's heard, you're going to lose everything, okay? It's terrible. Him going on Medicaid, $2,000, you're going to lose your house, his income, all of that stuff. She comes in absolutely stressed out, scared to death that she's going to lose everything, but her husband needs care. So what does she do? Hopefully someone gets her in the office and we can sit down and say, look, it's going to be okay because there is a whole section of the Medicaid rules called the Spousal Protection Rules, okay? And what they do is they will then, Medicaid will look at all of the assets of both spouses, and they do not care if you've been married 6 months or 60 years. If you're married, they're going to look at the assets of both spouses, okay? Now, what do? You still pull out those non-countable assets, the home, the household furnishings, one vehicle, prepaid burial, and any asset that you can't get to by yourself, okay? And then everything else gets counted. So pull that out, everything gets counted, all right? So, yes, sir?
What's an asset you can't get to by yourself?
Okay, good question. Land. if you have land that is jointly owned with you and someone else that is not your spouse, you and your brother, you and someone else, joint owners with rights of survivorship, you cannot get to that by yourself, and you cannot sell it without the other person's permission, so therefore it is not counted. In 20 years, I've come across, I think, 2 bank accounts that absolutely could not be closed out by one individual. Almost every jointly owned account, one owner can close it out, so therefore it's all counted. There's been a few that truly have been co-owned and you cannot get to it. Okay, good question. So a snapshot date with a married couple is what starts this process. The snapshot date is the first day of 30 days in a nursing home, or when you apply for a waiver service, that being home care or assisted living. So either of those things, we take a snapshot of your finances. Okay? Countable assets, pull out the non-countable. Of the countable, we then split those in half basically between the husband and the wife or the 2 spouses. There are some minimums. And I have this phone call frequently. Had it about 2 weeks ago. The client, she was broke. She had like $7,000 and her husband was in a nursing home. And she kept being told they're wanting me to spend half of this $7,000. I'm like, that is not the rule. You as the spouse can have up to $25,284. Tell them that. Show it to them. She was, a few days later, she called back. She said, Todd, they just keep telling me I've got to spend $3,500. I was like, it's not true. And finally, I gave her this policy. I said, give them this policy or tell them to call DHS themselves. Apparently they did. I've not heard back from her. So the minimum that the well spouse gets to keep is $25,284 plus the other spouse's $2,000. All right. Since there's a minimum, there's also a maximum. Okay. The maximum is $126,420. All right. So let's look at some examples of that. When a married person goes into the nursing home and they have $200,000 in assets, the well spouse gets to keep how much? Of countable assets, not the house, not the car, not prepaid burial. That stuff's off the table. Of everything else, with $200,000, how much does she get to keep? The answer is $100,000. Okay? Let's change the numbers just a little bit. When a married person goes into the nursing home and they have $400,000 in assets, the well spouse gets to keep. Pick the specific number. Okay? There we go. C, $126,420. So it's half and half, except when the well spouse hits 126, it stops. And then everything else goes over there. Yes, ma'am.
How did they determine those numbers?
It's a federal, based on cost of living and stuff. It's just a number that they hand down to us. And it thankfully does go up. I mean, I remember when it was 112 back in the, so.
Do they do some kind of present value calculation of future income streams from retirement plans to include into that? Two spouses.
Okay. So for everybody, do they do a future benefit of income? And so the short answer is no, because there is assets and there's income. So if they're getting income, and I'll address that in just a second, but there's current assets, things that you've had for greater than 30 days, and then there's income. So good question. So yes, you max out at $126,420. So I was hoping everybody was going to get that right, and I was going to say, I'm such a good teacher. Okay, the countable assets are, if the countable assets are over $252,640, which is, no, $840, sorry, then they max out. Everything else goes to the other spouse. Okay? How does Medicaid treat the income of a married couple, the spouse, in this case the wife, who is not in the nursing home? Number one, she only gets to keep her income. Number two, her income plus his income up to about $2,000, or both of their incomes. So just real quick, who says A? No one's voting. B? C. Okay. See, people aren't voting. Anonymous voting, this was going to be so cool. Okay, the answer is B, okay? So she gets to keep her income, period, but if that income is under basically about $2,000, we get to pull enough of his income and give it to her to get her up to that limit. So Miss Jones comes in, she got advice from the beauty shop, let's say, and that her income's $500 a month, his is $3,000 a month. And she's been told, and the typical rule is the person going on Medicaid, their income does go to the nursing home. That's the rule. Except with a married person, under the community spouse protection rules, she gets to have at least $2,000 worth of income. So with her $500, we're going to pull $1,500 from him every single month and give it to her so she can survive. Okay? And she's like, well, that's great news. And I get to keep the house and $126,000 in that. And so, yeah, life's not so bad. All right, can y'all see this? This is one of my favorites, and I was hoping to see what you... So Mr. and Miss Jones have about $300,000 in countable assets. Mr. Jones is going into the nursing home. They have to spend about $175,000. What can they spend money on to qualify? So out of this list, number one, a new roof for the home. Obviously, yes. Okay? How about jewelry for Mrs. Jones? Good. Answer's no. A car? And particularly if you trade in the old car and put in the new car, yes, you can do that. Heat and air unit for the house? Yes, thank you. Burial plot for both of them? Good. Okay. A refrigerator? Yes. An annuity for Mrs. Jones. The special kind of, thank you, Sarah, the special kind of annuity, yes, you can. It has to be a Medicaid qualifying annuity. You do not own that annuity right now, I promise you. Because one of the rules, one of many rules, is the first beneficiary of that annuity is the state of Arkansas. Okay, so I don't think you would buy an annuity and say, here, Arkansas, if I die, you can have it. Okay, you do not own that annuity. It is a very particular type of annuity that we buy at the time that you're needing nursing home care or the spouse needs it. How about a vacation for the daughter? No, good. How about a hot tub for Miss Jones? She said if it's medically required, that's not even the requirement, is if there's any chance Mr. Jones, the applicant, could ever benefit from this hot tub, the answer is yes. Okay? Exactly. Comes home and visits and he needs a hot tub, get him in the hot tub. Yep. Okay. Very good. All right. When a married person goes into the nursing home, the least the spouse not in the nursing home gets to keep is not $2,000, not $3,000, but $26,000 around. Okay, $25,000, whatever that number was, plus his $2,000. And if it's under that, they get to keep it all. I get this phone call more than I care to think about. Todd, I've got a $15,000 CD and $3,000 in the bank. They're telling me I have to spend it all. The answer is no. It's under 25 whatever, plus his two. You don't have to spend a dime to qualify. But there are people out there that I've talked to later in events like this. They're like, Todd, that's my very situation, and I had to spend half of my money. And I'm like, I'm sorry, you didn't have to, but you were told to. And that's sad, okay? What about the house? In Arkansas, that's almost everybody's biggest asset, and many times it's the most important asset because this is the family farm. This has been in the family for generations. How do we protect it, okay? Medicaid does say that you can own the house and still qualify, and you can actually qualify for Medicaid owning a house that's worth $585,000, and that's the county assessed value, not what you think it'll sell for. That's a big old honking house in Arkansas. Why would Medicaid let you qualify for Medicaid owning a almost $600,000 house? Not the back row, and not this row. Okay, go ahead. Why? The lien, Medicaid puts a lien on it as it goes through probate for the person that was on Medicaid, and they get their money back. So they're like, sure, go on Medicaid with a $600,000 house because we know we're going to put a lien on it and we get our money back.
What if the house is owned by a trust?
Good question. If it's a revocable trust, it is actually a countable asset. You will not ever qualify for Medicaid with your house in a revocable living trust. Okay? I'll cover that in just a second in more detail. So Medicaid will put a lien on the house to get their money back. However, they only do this if the house goes through probate. A house in a trust does not go through probate, so Medicaid can't get their hands on it. Whoa, that's good. No, since they can't get their hands on it, they will not let you qualify for Medicaid with your home in a revocable living trust. Okay? Oh, missed a question. All right, our next question, which you can't vote on, but you can give your house to the following people with no penalty. Number one, your spouse. Yes, that just makes sense. Number two, what about a disabled child? Can you give your house to a disabled child and them not impose a penalty? Yes. What about a sibling that owns part of the house? I call this the old maid rule. Two women, never got married, have always lived together, bought this house together. Now, one of them needs nursing home care. Well, if this were her spouse, we could give it to them with no penalty. Thankfully, DHS does have a heart on some things. And they've agreed that with a sibling, if the other sibling has a ownership interest in this property, they can now give it to the sibling with no penalties. And my favorite rule, a child who lived with you and kept you out of the nursing home, what I didn't put is for 2 years. The answer is yes, okay? That is one of our favorite exemptions that we encourage, that will encourage people to suck it up and just move in with mom and keep her out of the nursing home. Then we can give her this home regardless of value, all right? So I get this phone call periodically that says, Todd, Mom's getting bad. She's not real bad, but she's getting bad. Should I move in with her or should she move in with me? Okay. Does it matter is the question. I'm like, yeah, it matters a lot. If you can move in with her, then, and, work it out for 2 years, we can then give you that house. Yeah, but she's got cats and I hate her house and it's too small. What if I move her in with me? Fine. Okay, that's fine. We now lose this exemption unless, what if mom sells her house? And so here's the other situation that occurs, typically in a crisis mode. Someone comes in, hey, Todd, mom now needs nursing home care. Okay, well, how much money does she have? She's got about $200,000. Okay. Where'd this does she own a home? No, she lives with us. Okay. Did the $200,000 come from the home? Yeah. When she sold her home, she got $200,000. We just put it in the bank. Okay. And so now 2-3 years later, she needs nursing home care and she's got $200,000. Okay. Well, we can protect half. Okay. With the gift and annuity thing that I just talked about. Had you called me 2 or 3 years ago and said, hey, Todd, is there any advice you can give us on this? I'm like, yeah. Mom sells her house for $200,000. How much is your house worth? $250,000. How much do you own on it? $180,000. Okay. Why don't mom buy your house? Okay. So now mom gives you the $200,000, pays off your mortgage, and you've got $20,000 in the bank. It's now mom's house. You sweat it out for 2 years. Now we can give this house back to you, 0 penalty, and there's no money in the bank, and she instantly qualifies for Medicaid. I beg people, please call me. Oh, but you're a lawyer. You charge money, and it's expensive to come see you. I just saved you $200,000, okay? Please come see us. Let's just talk about it. Let me give you a strategy to say, this works. Here's the Medicaid rules applied to your situation. Here's how that works, okay? All right, here we go. Revocable living trust. The revocable living trust does not protect your assets from Medicaid. People say, well, I don't own it anymore. The trust owns it. That is a true fact. Medicaid doesn't look at what you own. They look at what you benefit from. Do you benefit from this trust? If the answer is yes, then it's a countable asset. even if it's an irrevocable trust. I'll get to that in just a second. Actually, a revocable living trust makes you worse off for Medicaid. Now, that's not the reason to not do it. I still do lots of revocable trusts, but just understand, if you need nursing home care, your home being in this trust is a problem, okay? You will not qualify because Medicaid can't get their hands on it because it's not going through probate, so therefore it's a countable asset. How do we fix this? One deed. We deed it from the trust to the community spouse, the well spouse. Problem solved, okay? And when he dies, the house is not in his name, so therefore it doesn't go through probate and Medicaid can't get their hands on it. All right? Probably the most common nursing home phone call that I get is they will have been working with this family that's basically broke, but their house is in a revocable living trust. They've applied, they ask, do you own a house? Yes. That's fine. Do you own any other real estate? Nope, just my house. Okay, great, you're qualified. So they'll apply 3, 4, 5 months later. Medicaid finally gets around to doing the application, and they're like, sorry, you're denied, your house is in a trust. Oh, and they call me panicked. It's like, what do I do? Just deed the house from the trust back to the person, or particularly the community spouse, and you're fine. They're like, oh, thank you. Okay, so it's an easy fix. You just got to know to fix it. So the home in a revocable living trust is a countable asset since it doesn't go through probate. An irrevocable trust, this is another question that you can't vote on. An irrevocable trust does protect my assets from Medicaid. Yes, no, or it depends. As my daughter-in-law said, anytime a lawyer asks you a question and one of the answers is it depends, always choose it depends, okay? That's correct. An irrevocable trust that you do not benefit from, you are not listed as the beneficiary, and preferably do not control, does protect your assets from Medicaid. My absolute worst meeting that I do is someone comes in, they did a irrevocable trust 5, 6, 7 years ago, and it's the kids bringing in mom's trust, and they're like, hey, I think we're good for Medicaid. Mom put everything in this irrevocable trust 7 years ago. The attorney told us we're good. We're just here to make sure everything's good. Well, can I look at the trust? Oh, it's fine. Let me look at the trust, please. They're like, no, the attorney told us. I don't care what the lawyer said. Please let me look at it. And so they'll finally let me look at it. In about 23 seconds, I can go to the spot, and it says, the grantor, which is mom, shall benefit from this trust. She shall get all the income and assets, but it's irrevocable, so we can't change it. And I'm like, this does not protect her. But I know there's a lot of buts there, but it does not, because she benefits from this trust. But the lawyer said, I know. So we're back to ground zero. It does not protect it. The key thing is she the beneficiary of that trust? If the answer is yes, it does not protect you from Medicaid.
It's a bypass trust. If you bypass us and put whoever in charge, and you bypass them inside of a trust, does that not protect your assets?
Okay. The question is a bypass trust. If you created it, I need to look at the terms of the trust, but typically the simple answer, if the person going on Medicaid in any way can benefit from this trust, it is a countable asset. Everything that's in this trust is going to be counted. Okay, typically a bypass trust is a taxable planning trust where you're bypassing one spouse, and that's a totally different issue. But the key thing is, does the person applying for Medicaid, is there any way they can get any assets out of this trust? If the answer is yes, it does not protect you. All right. The problem is with an irrevocable trust that does protect you from Medicaid is that is a gift, and it does start the 5-year look back. So if you come in to see me and don't have a lot of money, like nearing $1 million, we're probably not going to do an irrevocable trust if you're ill and probably won't make it 5 years. But if you think you can make it 5 years and have enough money to get you through those 5 years, yeah, we may talk about the strategy that I have for you is going to be a irrevocable trust. Okay? Income. In income, you can have too much income to qualify for Medicaid. True or false? Yes or no? You're both correct, okay? So, wait. That's a yes or no question, and you're both right. Okay. There is an income limit in Arkansas, okay, and it's $23.13. If your gross income is $1 over $23.13, Arkansas Medicaid says, whoops, you make too much money, you do not qualify for Medicaid. Well, this guy named Miller in Colorado many years ago was in this situation. He made too much income, and so they're like, wait, I make too much income, but I don't make enough to pay for the nursing home, so I need help. He went to court. The judge said, okay, we will now create what is known as a Miller Trust. A Miller Trust is a very simple trust, but it's an irrevocable income-only trust that if your income goes into the Miller Trust and then goes to the nursing home, you now qualify for Medicaid. People call all the time. I was told I have too much income to qualify for Medicaid. Well, that's true, but if you do the Miller Trust, we're okay. It's a very simple form. The form is simple, but the process is very complicated. And you can mess it up in a heartbeat and lose your qualification. So I encourage you, if your income is too high, you probably need some professional advice, and let us help you make sure that this Miller Trust does what it's supposed to do, okay? Final thoughts. By the way, how long do I have? 10 minutes. Ding, 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 ding. I'm good. This is till noon. Yeah, see, they like me. Okay. Please understand that the system is there, okay? Medicaid is there. It is funded. Everybody's like, but what if it disappeared? There's a lot of things that could disappear before this. I think it's changing, but it's there, okay? It's not user-friendly, okay? The rules are out there, but I've even read the rules and said, well, here's what it says, but this is not what they do. And I've argued it, and I've gotten, over my 20 years, I have made Arkansas change their rules on a number of things because they were not following their own rules nor federal law. And so I've got them to change through court cases to do it better, but it's still not that friendly, okay? And there are so many misconceptions, okay? I'm sure I've addressed something today. Surely you'll be honest and say, wow, I did learn something. That was what I thought, but it's not the way that it is. And the problem is you can get advice from people who you would think know what they're talking about. And I won't mention it, but there's people in very high places, even DHS itself, who will not give you the right information. Poor Brad and I had to train the caseworker down in MENA because the split, the half and half, we don't do the initial application. We just do the split, spend it, and then apply. And she's like, well, you're applying for Medicaid with $100,000. Yeah, because she started out with $200,000. What's that got to do with anything? Wait, she started with $2. Back on this date, we've spent $100, and now he's qualified, and she gets to keep this. No, you've got to split that $100. No, we don't. And so it's a training process. And I'm like, how many people have you advised on this who did not have an attorney? It's scary, okay? Pre-planning is always better strategy, okay? But many times people just think, well, I'm never going to a nursing home. I'm going to be fine. I'm not going to get sick. So if the pre-planning doesn't work, there is something we can do. There is a strategy that we can come up with you for now that will help you qualify and not lose everything. But pre-planning is always best, so I encourage you to do that. But if you don't, you're okay. You're okay, not great, okay? If you don't pre-plan, just understand there are people out there that can help you, and that's one reason I named the firm what I did is we have a strategy to help you not lose everything. All right, darn it. I'll just assume everybody will say C, and I'll leave here feeling good. All right. Questions? We have 6 minutes. Yes, sir.
What about life insurance policies?
Okay. Cash value of the life insurance is what they are looking at because you can cash that in and you can get it. Death benefit doesn't matter. It's the cash value. What can you terminate this policy and they write you a check? What is that amount? That's what goes toward that $2,000. Yes?
If an individual is
100% service-connected disabled, the VA will help pay for that. Now, the local nursing home is not a federal VA nursing home. It's just like any other nursing home, although it is limited to veterans. So I think the closest federal one is in Oklahoma somewhere. Okay. There are VA approved nursing homes, but that's a whole different issue. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Since you can't change it, the income that you get back from that is going to go toward your care. That's part of your income, and that's going to be. But they will look at it and see, is there any way that you can cash this in? And typically, with a charitable, they don't. IRS rule says, "Oh, thank you for doing this." Medicaid doesn't say, "Thank you for doing this." They will look at your income and count that as income.
Would that income go to the spouse, though?
It could, yes. It's part of that income calculation, yes. Good question. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Her question is on cars and bank accounts typically, and or is one better? It really doesn't matter. It's just if it's and, you typically need both signatures, but I promise you DHS will still, and it's almost always counted, or it's almost always the spouse that's on there. But if it is a kid, I think I could argue that if it's and, we do need that kid's signature to do it, and so therefore that would be not counted. And would be better, but you do need both signatures, and it possibly could make it become a non-countable asset. I push DHS's buttons a lot. I push them to the edge, but there's some things I'm just not willing to push. And on a $3,000 car, it's just like, let's just do something with it. Okay, let's not push their buttons and risk a denial. If you get a denial, that means you're paying for the nursing home at $6,000 or $7,000 a month during the entire time that the application was denied. So therefore, many times it's like, that's not worth the fight. Yes, good question. So if you have a life insurance policy that has $6,000, $8,000, $10,000, $12,000 worth of cash value on it, and you've not prepaid for your funeral, one of our strategies is to assign that life insurance policy to the funeral home so that at your death, they will then get that money. So yeah, irrevocable. The funeral contract has to be irrevocable. Very good question. If mom moves in and pays rent, do they need a contract? The answer is absolutely. Medicaid will assume any check from mom to you is a gift unless you can show some contract that shows otherwise. And technically, I would make sure that your CPA counts that as income so that we can show DHS, this is for real rental income, and they pay taxes on it and whole 9 yards. But typically, just the written agreement. Same thing with a caregiver agreement. A lot of times it's like mom will pay someone to come care for them, like a family member. You can do that, but you do need a contract, ideally before the care begins, and it clearly lays out how much you're paying and a reasonable amount of pay. Good questions. Anything else? Okay, please deposit your voter thing. And I'm sorry this didn't work. I'm going to figure it out. It's quirky. So anyway, those things are $20 each. Okay, please don't walk out the room with those. Okay. So they will be waiting for you near the door. Please drop those in there for us, and thank you very much.